Let's talk about movie comic books. What in the world, dude? You mean comic book movies? Nope. If I meant comic book movies, I would have said comic book movies. A comic book movie is a movie that is based on comic books. I want to talk about movie comic books. It's what I call them because they are comic books that are based on movies. And, there's some adaptations of movies that have made it into comic books, like the Batman movies used to all get adapted to comic books. But I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about comic books that are based on a movie universe and they further the story. They draw it out more and they expand the universe. And so I just want to talk about some of the favorite movie comic books that I have read, that I enjoy thoroughly, share them with you so that maybe you can enjoy them as well. The first one I want to talk about is it's currently being produced now by Titan Comics, and I bought it just to give it a shot. I didn't think it'd be that great, but I freaking love it, and that is Blade Runner 2019. Dude, if you like Blade Runner and you like Blade Runner 2049, then you need to check out this series. It follows this lady. She is a Blade Runner hunting replicants, and she finds like this little girl replicant, and you got she's winds up trying to protect her, and it's pretty dope so far. I think it's only like 7 issues in, but it's super cool. I love it. I love the Blade Runner universe. It's just a really cool world that they've built, and it takes you into that world. It puts you deeper in it, and so any chance that I've got to get more into that universe, hey man, I'm going to take it because it's some cool stuff. The next one that I want to talk about is, you're going to be like, that's not a movie. Well, it is. It was. It was a TV show, but then they made a movie to end the TV show because the TV show got canceled and everybody raged about it. So what I'm talking about is Serenity Leaves on the Wind. And I'm talking about this story in particular. Now, I've read 98% of the Firefly comic books that they've made. They're all really good. They're very good stuff, right? But my favorite is Leaves on the Wind because it is written by Joss Whedon's brother, Zach Whedon, and it takes place after Serenity, the movie, and it feels like a freaking true sequel to the movie. I mean, it just feels like you're watching Firefly. It's so good. It is so good. So if you are a Firefly fan and you've only ever watched the movies and the show, or the movie and the show, sorry, you need to pick up some Serenity comic books, but especially pick up Leaves on the Wind because I'm not kidding, man. It is, I can't speak highly enough about it. It is so good. If you miss Firefly and you want some more of it, you're not going to get another TV show. And if you do, let's be honest, they'll ruin it like they ruin everything else. But most everything else. Bill and Ted looks amazing. But if you're jonesing for some more Firefly action, There's a bunch of comic books out there. There's a current comic book being produced by Boom Studios right now that's actually pretty good. Uh, I'm always like thinking, I was like, I need to drop a couple comic books because I buy too many. And I'm like, I'll drop Firefly. If this issue's not good, I'm just going to drop it. And it's always good. I'm just like, oh, dang it, you've done it again, Firefly. It's good stuff. So pick up some Firefly comics if you are into Firefly. If you do not, you are missing out. Because there's more than just the movies, the movie and the shows. So, oh man, this next one is real good. It's real good. Oh man. It is Mad Max Fury Road. I'm a huge Mad Max fan. I love Mad Max. It's amazing. And when you first, if you're a Mad Max fan and you've watched all the Mad Max movies and you see Fury Road, you're kind of like, is this a reboot? Is this the same Max Rockatansky we've seen in the other three movies? Like, is this a sequel? Are they redoing it? What's going on? Well, this story shows you, and see right here, it is written by George Miller. Okay, so in this comic, it bridges the gap between Beyond Thunderdome and Fury Road. So it shows you that Fury Road is a sequel to Beyond the other three movies, and it's the same Max we know and love. And this comic book series made me enjoy the movie even more. And because in my head, I was like, this is a sequel. It's a sequel. This is after Thunderdome. And so this just confirmed it. And I was just like, yeah, man, more Max. And it's good stuff. So there's 3 stories in this set that's been collected now. So there's 2 issues about Max and his journey. And then there's 1 issue about Furiosa and her origin, and then there's another issue about Nux, the war boy that's hauling Max around for a little bit, and that turns on the Immortan Joe, and it's like the Immortan Joe's origin is pretty cool, pretty brutal. So if you like Mad Max, you need to pick up that set because it will not disappoint. In the same vein, all right, Max, I love Mad Max, but I also really love Robocop. And if you've watched my other videos, you know that I've got some Robocop comics, and if you know me, you know I've got Robocop comics and stuff like that. There are Robocop comics, and then there is this Robocop comic. It was produced by Boom Studios in 2015, maybe 2014, 2015. I think it's called Dead or Alive, I believe is the actual name of the story, because it was just called Robocop when it came out. I love Robocop so much. I mean, I watched Robocop for the first time when I was probably like 4 years old. I mean, I turned out all right, I guess. But Robocop is just super cool. And I'm a huge Robocop fan. And outside of the first movie, this Dead or Alive comic is the best thing of Robocop that exists. That I've experienced anyway. This is written as if the second and third movies don't exist, and this is written like a true sequel to Robocop 1, and I just freaking love every second of it. It feels like you're in a Robocop movie, and it is amazing. So Robocop, Dead or Alive, check it out. You will not be disappointed. So last but not least, I talked about these movie comic books take what the movies gave us and just expand the universe and make it better. And there's no other series out there that did that better than Dark Horse's Star Wars comics. And so Marvel's Star Wars comics that came out back in the day, I'm sure that there are a lot of people that love those, but those are kind of like that's not really Star Wars, right? And Marvel's current Star Wars comics, they're Disney Star Wars, and it's not the same, man. But the Dark Horse Star Wars era of comic books is amazing. I mean, they got stuff that goes back, 5,000 years before A New Hope, and it's Tales of the Jedi series, and they follow the Queldrama brothers, and I love these stories, and the ending of this run with redemption, that's one of my favorite stories ever, one of my favorite Star Wars stories, and nobody knows about it because no one reads comic books. And so Star Wars Tales of the Jedi Redemption is awesome, but you would be doing yourself a disservice to read that without reading these first, so that you know where these characters have been and what they've done before. But like the Dark Horse era, it spanned everything. So this is 5,000 years after it. And my personal favorite era was the prequel era of the Dark Horse comics, because when the movies would come out, this would fill in stuff around the movies just like the books did. There were books coming out that filled out what was going on with in the universe outside of the movies, and these comic books did the same thing. You've got episode 1 era stuff with, you've got some Darth Maul comics, and you've got stories about Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and it just fills in all these gaps and gives you all these other adventures that you want to see, that you want to have with these characters that you know and love, that they can't make a movie about all the time, and it's awesome. So when I say prequel era, so there's the Star Wars ongoing comic book that Dark Horse did after episode 1 came out. Starts out with Ki-Adi-Mundi on his planet, and or not on his planet, but starts out with a story about Ki-Adi-Mundi. And I didn't start on that one. I started on this story, Outlander, and it's about one of his former apprentices, Sherrod Het, who leaves the Order and becomes a Tusken freaking Raider, and Ki-Adi-Mundi sent to go bring him in, and it's a fallen Jedi who's a Tusken Raider, and it's cool. And Ki-Adi-Mundi is cool. I love Ki-Adi-Mundi. He's one of my favorite Jedi, and that is because of these comic books. But they stopped being about him, and they kind of evolved into being about Quinlan Vos. And this guy was he's a Jedi, but he lost his memory, so he's trying to figure out who he is, who he was, and who he wants to be. And so he's going on this journey to try to find that. And so he kind of toes a line between being, a Jedi and dark, light and dark. He kind of toes that line a little bit. And his stuff's good. And then from him, it goes on to the Clone Wars, and it's about Obi-Wan and Anakin and all these other Jedi, and like all these things, all these battles that happen during the Clone Wars. And it's freaking awesome stuff, man. It is, in my opinion, so much better than the Clone Wars cartoon. And you might say I'm nuts for that, but if you ain't read them, then you don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the Clone Wars cartoon. It's okay. I mean, I can get why people like it, but I think I don't like it so much because it kind of goes against some of these, and these are awesome. And so, for a movie comic book, a comic book based on a movie, to expand the universe, it's cool. Like the Mad Max, George Miller wrote that. And so, I mean, it's officially part of the Mad Max world. And these were too until Disney bought them. And these comic books influenced the movies. George Lucas saw Quinlan Voss's apprentice, Ayla Secura, one of the coolest freaking Jedi ever. And he was like, wow, she's really cool. I'm going to put her in the movies. And she's in episode 2 and episode 3. I mean, she's got big parts, but a comic book character based on the movies made it into the actual movies. And dude, that's cool. So the biggest gripe that I have about Marvel Star Wars comics is that they go against these Dark Horse comics. And these Dark Horse comics are so good, man. They are just as much Star Wars to me as the movies are, because they just encapsulate Star Wars, and they succeed where the current day stuff does not. And I would rather have these Dark Horse comics than any of these new Marvel Star Wars comics. And I would rather read these Dark Horse Star Wars stories than I would any other Marvel stuff, or watching the Clone Wars or any of the other cartoons, even the Mandalorian. Like, this is better. If you like Jedi, these stories are awesome. But there's, like the books, there's comics about everything. So there's comics about the Star Wars ongoing series changed its name later around issue 50 from just Star Wars to Republic, and then they also had an Empire comic as well that dealt with the Empire side of stuff. And anything that you want, Star Wars would cater to you back in the day with your comic books. So those are my recommendations. I'm going to include links in the description below so that you can pick up some of these books. If you like any of these characters the way that I do, if you're a fan and you haven't read these, then by all means, please check those out, because they are some awesome stories that most fans miss out on because they don't read comic books. So that's all I've got for today, for this video. Let me know what you thought. If I missed any movie comic books that you really like, maybe I don't know about it. So let me know in the comments what your favorite comics based on movies are. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And until next time, be excellent to each other.